Okay, hi, I'm Bella, and I'm Liz.
Janine, and I am the nonfiction editor from the Oxford Review.
Yes. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about two different subjects. One is the bane of our existence, which is AI, but that will be later. But the first thing we're going to talk about is a new literature out in the world right now that we're coining the term as Lit-Nouveau. And I wrote an article, and it's up on Substack now, and a lot of people are really crazy to know what this Lit-Nouveau is. Now, Lit-Nouveau is kind of something that Oxonians certainly don't want, because we are very attached to long drawn out, wonderful, expressive pieces where the literature really flows, and we don't mind a little bit of, purple staining our prose. Not too much though, but a little bit more than others. And we're in an era now where we've kind of been thrust into, an era of kind of episodic content and microdramas. And that's where people's minds are. That's where you're keeping their attention. And they're, like I said, there's a zeitgeist of kind of in the literary world right now where people want to write like this. They're not sure it's going to be accepted. And as the editor, I am here to say I am absolutely for the new Lit-Nouveau. There are some things that we can talk about, and Janine and I can share with you that we're also accepting nonfiction that adheres to Lit-Nouveau. And it's just more of a compressed, accelerated version of literature. And you won't be able to take your time as much, and this will be, I believe, become the next type of literature that is going to be accepted in major magazines, even for long form. Even long form, people are wanting to get to the point much sooner. They want to know where they are. They need an orientation in the very beginning. And I guess, Janine, you can speak to what you found in nonfiction for things like this, what you feel like is applicable.
Right. And let's say you heard it first here. Bella just said, we think that this will be a creative voice that takes over. One way we can have a more nonfiction literary voice is to create a scene instead of just the details of the story. Let's take a true story and use the tools of literature. Let's say you use more sensory detail, concrete details, character development, reflection. These are all ways that you can make your nonfiction sing to us. Not just a piece that we could read in the old-fashioned newspaper, but this type of writing where you expand your literary voice is distinctive and narrative, and use strong imagery. Use metaphor. Sometimes people say, "Oh, metaphor is being taken over." We worry about metaphor being confused with AI. Don't worry about that. Write the way you see things in your mind. Express that, even though it's nonfiction, it will sing on the page.
Yeah, and I don't think right now AI is taking over metaphors, because metaphors, you can kind of see them on the page as you read them when someone turns something in. We've even seen where you're reading something and it's AI, and they've gone back and put it through the human generator to make it sound more human. You can tell because the metaphor doesn't fit with what's going on in the story. It's just out of left field. She was, walking like a bee humming. Well, those two things don't go together. And sometimes that's what AI does, is it puts those things together in concert, and they don't, they're off tune. That's the best way I can describe it. Now, there is a formula for Lit-Nouveau for those people who are looking into, hey, how can I, and this might be also just a great way to get into a literary magazine through the back door, actually, because magazines are really looking for this, and some magazines are looking for it and they don't know that they're looking for it, because we both read for several of the top 5 literary journals in the entire world. And the thing about the literary journals is you find that they're looking for something that immediately grabs your attention. But a lot of people aren't saying, well, how do you immediately grab someone's attention? So we created a formula, which is up on our Substack, but it's also on our Instagram page, everywhere. We share it personally. And the formula for the new Lit-Nouveau is, your first paragraph must be either a call to action itself, or an inciting event. And I don't mean like he goes and, pushes her down the stairs or something like that. Doesn't necessarily necessarily have to be that the husband is already doing something, but it can be something more subtle if you're doing that type of, book, is where, she leans over her shoulder and she looks over her shoulder as she leans over his cup and pours something in. You don't even have to say what it is. You just need to show us there is something intriguing there. And it doesn't necessarily have that. You can have, the little girl was standing in the road and she had a tattered dress on and there was nothing but dust covering her shoes as she watched the car drive away. It needs to be top of the cup there.
Yes, that's such a great example of it. Little sensory details like that make all the difference in writing, including nonfiction.
Yes, exactly. Nonfiction, fiction, because now and Janine can speak a little bit more about this, is with nonfiction, we have the joy of being able to creative nonfiction. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get through our 6 plots of how you, formulate. Oh, so your second one is your short story must be episodic in nature. And that means, what does episodic mean? Okay, so if you're looking at a screenplays are actually the best place to start to see how they do it. Particularly Breaking Bad is one of the best screenplays to learn from, I feel like, because you're thrown into the action. So they've already tackled part 1, right? In the first paragraph, you know where you are. You have you have an action and a call to action all at the same time. And then, it's episodic in nature. So you have all of this stuff swirling around that one thing that's happening in that episode. And then you can move to part 3. So once you've tackled this first part, if you just look at it like a formula, or Lit-Nouveau, you can apply it to each scene. And Janine, do you want to talk about how soon you feel like? I know it's another thing, but if you want to talk about number 3, how soon, especially fiction, you feel like you need to see this and.
Sure. Can you hear me? Okay. We have. We learned in school that we went to school together, if that's maybe not a secret, with an excellent teacher. But we would like to see your story grab us within the first few pages, specifically the first page. If you can grab us, then you will get our attention within the first 2 pages. There must be a yearning and the deep need, or a hero's quest is the third item that Bella mentioned in the formula for Lit-Nouveau. You can grab us using, again, concrete details, and let us know specifically, think about the scene in your mind, create it. What do you see in your mind? And tell us, like Bella did earlier, like, okay, for example, my father worked long hours to support the family. Well, how about this? Each night, I heard the garage door open at 10 o'clock. He came in. The dinner dishes were dry on the rack. We were sleeping. Do you see the difference between those 2 forms within the first? Create the deep yearning and the deep need. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, and maybe even add to that. We were laying on our belly, looking for him to come and knowing we'll never see him, right? Yeah.
We were hungry. The deep need. Yeah, the deep need should grab us, and so we want to read more, because as the editors, when you get so many, like up to thousands of things that you're reading, if it's not singing to us, we go to the next one. And you might be the best writer in the world, but if you can't prove that to us in the first few pages, it's just something that you're going to have to try again. And so,
now editors further, but readers might only read the first page. So really, my advice to you, even if you're not submitting to the Oxford Review and you're submitting somewhere else, your first paragraph needs to be that incident. And then within your first page or 2, we need to know the yearning. Okay. You can then spell it out. You don't have to elongate it, but you don't want to spend so much time with the setup, at least with short fiction. In a book, it can be fine, but there's something that we call like a long, book denial, and where people submit an entire book in one short story, and then they're rushing. We want the rush in the beginning, through the middle, through the end. Do that. And we don't want information about the end. You can weave that. And another one, which is, eloquently weaving back. So this, let's take, for example, children who are supposed to be, it's on their belly, the dad is there, I don't know what type of story it is, but let's pretend he grabs a, glass of scotch and he's looking at the bills and weeping over the bills, and the kids are turning to each other, and then they have the dialogue whispering to each other, what's going on here? Oh, this is why we didn't have food. Dad's having to work so much, or the little girl, down the road, and the car has left, and now you have, this old lady go and put her arm around her and say, it's okay, they'll be back one day. And, those are very impactful things. And where the little girl said, but they left me before. And then you're getting into dialogue and then internal exposition. Maybe the little girl is thinking, my mom always does this to me, even though this lady is saying that they're going to come back, I know they won't. And so that's a way to, basically slap the reader in the face, if you will, which we don't really want to do, but we want to shake them into reality. We want to shake them into your reality. If you want them to be in your reality with this Lit-Nouveau, that seems to be what everyone wants to read right now, then you're going to have to make some compromise. And instead of starting out with your backstory and bringing us into this lovely story, which we both, of course, love, you may, if you follow this formula, you're going to be able to bring us in right away. And then do you want to take number 5, Janine?
Oh, sure. Keep the dialogue truncated. Most people don't speak in full paragraphs. And so think about your favorite books. Think about the favorite things that you've read or your favorite conversations with your best friend. Sometimes you're interrupting one another. I mean, if it's a really good friend, you kind of know what they're thinking already. So get creative with your dialogue. I think Bella is a great example of a writer who does this. And you should read some of the stuff that she's got out on Substack, on her Instagram page as well. She's a fantastic example of using dialogue well. And remember, the facts are yours, in nonfiction at least, and the meaning is what the reader carries home. So we don't always have to tell. You can create some nuance, create a dialogue that makes you go, and let the reader take away. That was something it took me a long time to master, is I kept trying to explain everything, but I didn't trust the reader enough, which showed that I in my earlier work was just a little more amateur. So trust your readers. But again, the truncated dialogue is going to sing for you.
I think we were taught this in our screenplay class with Brian Delaney, where you leave some details not known, like the woman, you don't know what's in her hand when she's pouring it into the coffee cup. Maybe her husband has diabetes and she's trying to give him some holistic medicine, but maybe something more, and that's how you fill in those details. And what I must say is probably before page 5 or 6, we must know why we're following you and why we're rooting for you. So in between all of this, between 1 and 6, your character needs to have stumbling blocks all throughout this. And that's just page 1 through 6, is you need to have these stumbling blocks that are happening. And I think the best way to do this is read screenplays. I know a lot of screenplays you can find for free on the internet. I don't know, Janine, if you have any favorites that you like or anything like that, short stories,
Well, I just was thinking when you said that one of my first professors said the very best way to improve your skills as a writer is to be a good reader. And if you read literature and really anything, it doesn't have to be literature, it can be pop fiction or whatever. That is going to advance your writing probably faster than anything else you could do. It's just see and copy it a little bit,
I agree. And I don't want to scare people because then they think, oh, I have to read all of this literature. No, if you're a great literature writer and know what genre you are in and you don't want to put that voice in your head while you're writing, we understand.
Yeah, we do.
Best is to look at screenplays and playwrights' works so that you can see how they have done this. They've truncated the speech, because you have all these actors that you're having to share dialogue with. And that's something we learned that was quite shocking to me, because I thought, especially in plays and, screenplays, that these people would be talking for like an hour like we do.
Yeah.
And superfluous, but they're not. They cut each other off. They're like, they stop. They don't say what they want to say because they're angry or upset or they're embarrassed. So many things happen within dialogue that you just don't realize.
And dialogue can be the best form of exposition.
Yes.
Really.
I actually like exposition. I know a lot of people say, oh, show, don't tell. There is absolutely a place for show. The girl or walk away. But there's a formula that we're going to be posting later, probably next week. There's a formula for how you incorporate, particularly, this is really good for those of you who are a really big exposition writer. There's actually a formula of how to put the scene with the action, the dialogue, and then the internal dialogue within that, which is called exposition. Put it together in a formula so you go 1/3, 1/3, and then any way you want to, and accept it in form than it is in any other form. So this is a formula that I made up that I'm going to be posting next week.
That is great advice. And practice. Just practice. Send it to your friend. Read it out loud. Reading out loud. Something I just learned was to print it in a different font than you wrote it, because you're so used to seeing, if you work on a laptop or whatever, and you do Times New Roman or whatever, print it out in a different font entirely, and it's like reading something fresh. Right. And suddenly you're reading it and as if it was new to you, and things just start to jump out at you. And so that's another way that you can, spice it up or see things that you are missing.
Correct. And I think that in order for you to see how everything is compressed, I think screenplays and playwright work are the best way to see how they compress things. Not just short stories, because even short stories, if you think of short stories, back in the 18th, 19th century, they still had the lead up. And unfortunately, the lead up is dying a very, rapid death. It's like, it's not working out as well as we. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back and talk about AI and how you can spot AI and how used of using AI even when they're not. Negative parallelisms, and how there are people on the internet who are claiming that these types of things that you see in writing are definitely AI, and we're here to tell you they are not. And there's the easiest way to prove this is with parallelism. For instance, it's not X, it's Y pattern. So those of us who are a little bit older than the younger generation, when we were going to university, it was actually taught to do that, to engage your reader and to make sure that, you're right there with, hold on one second. This is absolutely not true. And the reason I'm saying this is I do clinical research, or have done clinical research in the past for many years. And sometimes when you're talking about a drug, or you're talking about an effect of a drug, you can say it is not like this drug, but it's like this drug. And if you do clinical research or any medical whatsoever, you're going to see this seep into your writing. And if you go back and read manuscripts from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, even probably up to the 2000s, early 2000s, you're going to see people have this identical logic that they're using in their writing, and AI didn't even exist. And so, as a journalist, I'm sure you have used this a million times.
But let's be honest. The AI has to assimilate and copy what has been done. Otherwise, they wouldn't understand or know. So, of course, it's copying manuscripts that have been, fed into their own system. So of course it existed before AI. I don't know why we are so afraid to talk about it, but also just afraid of what it's doing to us. And we don't want it to stifle you as a writer or ourselves. So you need to write the way you write, and then be prepared to defend it too.
Be prepared to defend it. Yes, that's all we give you, because even though I agree with a lot of things that her name is Liz on the web, she's on Instagram, did in this post to help highlight where AI is coming from and where you're seeing it in writing. Absolutely, you're going to see this in writing. It's not going to be done well. For those people who have been writing forever and they've been doing journalism or clinical research and medical and things like that, they have a natural propensity to use this style, and they're not. And another one I want to grandiose. Everything is important. This is definitely not human written. This also is because a grandiose writer and you have a character that is voice driven, everything will be. The thing that AI does not do well, you can't, it's out of circumstance and put zero. So you're going to get a cookie cutter view of what this is, and it's not giving them deep details. So characters who are not well developed, sometimes that's not AI either. You have people who don't write character well. They do a great job just doing scenery or episodes, things that happen, and they're terrible with dialogue. So their characters aren't getting that development that they need, or they're not great with exposition, which you also need in writing. And we've strangled out exposition, right? Because editors for the last, 15 years have said, don't show, don't tell.
At least, yeah.
And with all the don't tell us, show us, the problem with that is, yes, I'm showing you the car drive away, but we don't know what that little girl is feeling. And so also mimic AI, and it's the way that the whole new generation was taught to write. So we want to give a shout out to the newer generations and Gen Z, Y, X, Y, Z, you shouldn't be, penalized because you're writing the way that AI has learned to write the way you have. And if your professors taught you to use an M dash instead of commas, which Janine and I both took Christina Thompson, who's the editor of the Harvard Review. We took her course, and not together, but we took it, in tandem. And both of us can tell you, she told me, I would rather see an M dash, and this was years ago, so I don't want to give away my age, but this was years ago where she told me I'd rather see an M dash than a comma. She loves M dashes. And so when you have a mentor that is that influential on you, of course you're going to be in love with M dashes. I personally am not going to stop using M dashes. What about you, Jenny?
No. And so to show my age, I was writing when it was still in a column. You had to fit everything into a column and at a specific word count, or otherwise the editor of the newspaper would send it back to us. And so there were things that were choppy, and we learned to minimize the word count. And so anyway, to your point, let's not be so afraid of it that it does stifle and strangle us, because really the human element of this is what's being strangled out. And all we have to do is just say, here we are, you're going to love me. So here I am, and show us that we will love you.
And you're right, surpass all of this negative AI garbage on top of it, because to talk about is the XAY, the self-posted rhetorical questions that you're giving the answer to. No. So this one I'm going to say right now, we learned in a course that I took in London, is they actually said, if you want to grab the agent, you want to ask that question. Well, if he doesn't complete his quest, what will be his, last steps? What will he do? Will he die? Will this be desperation? You see it on television. You see it in everything. It's the episodic hook that pulls you in and makes you want to know more. So while she has some great, I think, ideas on how to spot AI, maybe if all these things are together, absolutely. Might want to have a little bit of a red flag, but I think you and I already do all of these together. We've already been published in some places. Our work is out there. Our work had this years ago before this, went on. God forbid you go back and look at any of my old journalistic stuff that was written in quite my young, excited voice. And I think that we can look at this and say, do not panic. Writers, don't get rid of what you're doing. I don't want to see you take out the most glorious things about your writing, like metaphors and similes and asking me questions, rhetorical questions. Go ahead and do it, because I am going to look for AI. Absolutely. AI is like the, kind of like the senile version of a human, because it's not really getting the human experience, the emotional experience. It's not got to the table yet. Now, will it? It may, and we may need to be worried and, worry about this later. But Janine?
I love what you just said, because I love to piggyback on that. There's this, the answer to this is surprisingly hopeful. The AI can generate competent prose. It can imitate style and summarize grief and all of that, but it cannot remember. And literary nonfiction has always been built on memory, witness, but AI cannot tell you what your daughter whispered to you when the dad came home so late that we were talking about earlier in a story, what it felt like to hold a grandchild born on a bitter winter morning, a particular setting aside for a dream. So just be radical in your specificity. That's going to work. And I think the opposite is coming true. That we were taught to universalize in the old days, but now being more specific, I think, is just your best weapon against AI.
Yes. And I think that as much as I absolutely love the professors we've had, I've heard horror stories of other people having professors that, were not allowing that human element of those people in. And then everything just became the same. And that's one thing I will say is, yes, I believe in education. I believe it's important for you to learn the fundamentals, but don't be so swayed by your professors that you don't break the rules and make it your own.
Yeah, humans are contradictory. And that's what makes this great hero's journey, is all of the obstacles that Bella pointed out earlier. The obstacles and those conflicts are what make, we all know these stories, the stories of our own lives, but the stories of the lives of our friends too. We've witnessed these types of things. So yeah, show us.
And the mistakes. We want to know your mistakes. And we want to hear the secret. One of our great professors, will come back quite frequently, I'm sure, who we're going to have on the podcast as well, is he taught us that everyone has a public life, a private life, and a secret.
Yeah.
And so what you're writing to your audience is that AI cannot do is the AI may be able to show the public life. It doesn't know how to get into the trenches of the private life that's going on, and then even more over the secret life that the husband or wife might be hiding from each other.
That's the stuff we all love to read.
Yes, and
tell us the secrets.
We're still
Spill the tea.
Want the tea and ready on there.
It.
We're not listening to AI. We don't want it. We want details. And so, well, I guess, do you want to end this, Janine?
Sure. I would just say, your strongest writing often arrives when you stop interpreting and you simply observe. And so tell us what you observe. And then, have the confidence to just try. Send it in. We'd love to read your work. We're excited for you. We're rooting for you. And, as writers ourselves, nothing it makes us more delighted than to watch somebody rise. And we're all rise together, right? So love to hear from you.
Yes, good. And condense it. Just condense it a little bit. Make it happen more quickly.
Yeah.
But rules, right? All those horrible rules. But if you can condense it and you can make it, palatable for the style of where we always have about 50 seconds to grab attention, grab our on there. And this is
Janine.
Bye.